1970s were a wild time for the automotive industry. Bold designs, new regulations, and plenty of missteps. In this video, we're looking at the 10 most questionable American cars of the 70s, from bizarre styling choices to mechanical disasters that left drivers frustrated and designers scratching their heads. These vehicles may not have been winners, but they sure are unforgettable. AMC Gremlin. Let's kick things off with the AMC Gremlin, a car that looks like someone took a normal vehicle, chopped off the rear half with a chainsaw, and called it a day. Designed to be a fuel-efficient compact, the Gremlin's proportions were as odd as its name. With a long hood and stubby rear, it resembled a car that shrank in the dryer. Despite its unfortunate looks, the Gremlin had some success, selling over 670,000 units. It was affordable, starting at just $1,879 in 1970, about $14,000 today, and was one of the first American subcompacts to hit the market. Interestingly, AMC released it on April 1, 1970, April Fool's Day, as if acknowledging its absurdity from the start. Under the hood, you could get engines ranging from a modest 2.0-liter inline-4 to a downright bonkers 5.0-liter V8, which gave this ugly duckling surprising speed. But let's face it, the Gremlin didn't need to be fast, it needed a makeover. Owners frequently complained about rust issues, and the car's boxy shape made it less aerodynamic than a brick. One shocking fact, the Gremlin came with an optional Levi's interior. Yes, as in Levi's jeans. Blue denim upholstery with copper rivets. You had to admire AMC's creativity, even if it sometimes felt like they were trolling their own customers. Even today, the Gremlin has a cult following, with enthusiasts embracing its quirkiness. Sure, it's ugly, but it's charming in that ugly sweater contest kind of way. If nothing else, it's a reminder of the lengths automakers will go to stand out in a crowded market. Ford Pinto. So, the Ford Pinto may be infamous for its explosive personality, but its design deserves some scorn too. With a bland, uninspired body and a rear end that looks perpetually unfinished, the Pinto was the epitome of mediocrity. It's as if Ford designers ran out of budget and said, good enough. What really sealed Pinto's fate in the annals of automotive history was its, shall we say, incendiary tendencies. Due to a flaw in the fuel tank design, rear-end collisions could result in fiery explosions. The scandal was so bad it coined the term Pinto Memo, referring to Ford's internal cost-benefit analysis of human lives versus repair costs. On the technical side, the Pinto came with engines ranging from 1.6 to 2.8 liters. It was lightweight and affordable, starting at $2,062, about $15,000 today, and sold over 3 million units, proving that even safety concerns couldn't stop Americans from loving cheap cars. An interesting twist? Despite its bad reputation, the Pinto was a key player in the subcompact car wars of the 70s. It competed directly with the AMC Gremlin and imports like the Volkswagen Beetle and Toyota Corolla. In fact, it was one of the first cars Ford marketed specifically to women, using pastel colors and fashion-centric ads. Today, the Pinto is more of a punchline than a collectible. If you ever see one at a car show, resist the urge to check for fire extinguishers. You're not the first to think of that joke. AMC Pacer. The AMC Pacer is often called the fishbowl on wheels, and honestly, that's the kindest thing people say about it. With its bulbous shape, massive windows, and squat proportions, the Pacer looked like it came straight out of a sci-fi movie, and not the good kind. AMC pitched the Pacer as the car of the future, and in some ways, it was. Its wide body and compact length gave it an unusual look, and its interior space was excellent. But those looks? Oof. It resembled a car that melted in the sun, then refroze in a strange shape. Under the hood, the Pacer came with inline-6 engines and later a V8 option. Performance was acceptable, but fuel economy wasn't, especially during an era when gas prices were skyrocketing. At around $3,300, about $17,000 today, it wasn't cheap either. Surprising fact? The Pacer was one of the first American cars designed for front-wheel drive, but AMC couldn't get the necessary parts in time. Instead, it went with rear-wheel drive, which compromised the original design. The Pacer has since gained cult status, partly thanks to its starring role in Wayne's World. It's ugly, sure, but it's also weirdly lovable in a so bad it's good kind of way. Chevrolet Vega. Picture this. The Chevrolet Vega is proof that even giants like GM can produce a disaster. At first glance, the Vega looked like a promising little compact with clean, simple lines. But looks can be deceiving, and the Vega's flaws ran deep, literally, as its aluminum engine blocks tended to warp and crack. Introduced as an affordable, sporty alternative to imports, the Vega was supposed to take the fight to the Volkswagen Beetle. Instead, it became a headache for GM and its customers. Rust was a notorious issue, with some Vegas reportedly corroding before they even left the showroom floor. And that aluminum engine? It overheated faster than a microwave burrito. Production peaked at over 2 million units, but quality issues tarnished the car's reputation. Priced at just $2,090 at launch, about $15,000 today, it was a budget car in more ways than one. Still, GM tried to salvage it with performance versions like the Vega GT, but even those couldn't save the car's reputation. Fun fact, the Vega was built using a unique rail transportation system that shipped the cars vertically to save space. Unfortunately, this caused some of the cars to leak fluids during transit, giving dealers an unpleasant first impression. The Vega's short lifespan makes it a cautionary tale for automakers. It's a reminder that cutting corners might save money in the short term, but it's a long-term recipe for disaster. Bricklin SV-1. So, the Bricklin SV-1, a car that's as much a disaster as it is a cautionary tale. Malcolm Bricklin, the man behind this monstrosity, aimed to create a safety vehicle. What he ended up with was an undercooked design that looked like a rejected Hot Wheels toy. With its massive gull-wing doors and a front end resembling a startled fish, the SV-1 was ambitious but ugly. The SV-1's claim to fame was its safety-first philosophy. It had integrated bumpers, a fiberglass and acrylic body, and, ironically, a braking system that was anything but safe. Only around 2,900 units were made, with a base price of about $7,900, roughly $45,000 today. Owners often complained that these massive doors were prone to failure, leaving them trapped inside, a literal safety hazard. Under the hood, the Bricklin offered a choice between AMC's 5.9-liter V8 or Ford's 5.8-liter V8. Despite the big engines, the car was heavy and sluggish, with handling best described as "don't try it." Production ended after just 2 years due to financial and quality control nightmares. Fun fact, the Bricklin SV-1 was assembled in New Brunswick, Canada, partly subsidized by the Canadian government. It's probably the only car in history that managed to bankrupt both its creator and a provincial government at the same time. Today, the SV-1 is a rare oddity, more remembered for its failures than its innovations. Collectors might appreciate its uniqueness, but driving one? That's a gamble not worth taking. Ford Mustang II. Alright, the Ford Mustang II is the automotive equivalent of a midlife crisis. After the muscle-bound Mustangs of the 1960s, Ford downsized the pony car in response to the oil crisis, resulting in something that looked like a Pinto in a bad disguise. Despite its underwhelming design, the Mustang II was surprisingly popular, selling over 1.1 million units. Priced at $3,134 at launch, around $18,000 today, it was economical and practical. Unfortunately, it wasn't much fun to drive. Engine options topped out at a 5.0-liter V8, but even that felt neutered thanks to emissions regulations and weight issues. Critics and enthusiasts were harsh, dubbing it the Mustang that forgot it was a Mustang. While it did save the Mustang nameplate from extinction, it also tarnished the car's reputation for years. Here's a surprising tidbit. The Mustang II was Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1974. Yes, seriously. While its design and performance were unimpressive, the car hit the market at the perfect time, aligning with consumer demand for smaller, more efficient vehicles. Today, the Mustang II is often skipped over by collectors, overshadowed by its more muscular predecessors and modern successors. But hey, at least it gave us the Cobra II, which looked cool even if it didn't back it up with power. Chevrolet Chevette. So, the Chevrolet Chevette was GM's attempt to go toe-to-toe with cheap imports like the Toyota Corolla. Unfortunately, what they came up with was a car so boring it made beige paint look exciting. The Chevette's styling was uninspired, with a boxy shape that screamed, "I was designed by a committee that hated cars." It came with a tiny 1.4-liter or 1.6-liter engine, producing less horsepower than a lawnmower. Despite this, it sold like hotcakes, with nearly 3 million units finding homes during its production run. Priced at $2,899 in 1976, about $15,000 today, the Chevette was cheap and cheerful, if your idea of cheer involved slow acceleration and questionable reliability. It did get good gas mileage, which helped during the energy-conscious 70s. Fun fact, the Chevette was sold worldwide under different names, including the Vauxhall Chevette in the UK and the Opel Kadett in Germany. It's like the global ambassador of mediocrity. Collectors today? Forget it. The Chevette is about as desirable as leftover meatloaf. But if you want a cheap project car, it's hard to beat. Dodge Aspen and Plymouth Volaré. The Dodge Aspen and Plymouth Volaré are like the automotive equivalent of bad wallpaper. Ubiquitous in their time, but regrettable in hindsight. They were meant to replace the Dodge Dart and Plymouth Valiant, but ended up as rust-prone disasters with bland styling. The Aspen and Volaré were plagued with quality issues from day one, including frame rust so severe it sometimes showed up on dealer lots. Despite this, they sold well, with combined production reaching over 1 million units. Price starting at $3,400, about $17,500 today, making them affordable family cars. Engine options ranged from a 3.7-liter slant 6 to a 5.9-liter V8, which gave these uninspired sedans and wagons a bit of grunt. Unfortunately, they were also prone to stalling, overheating, and just about every mechanical failure you can think of. A curious detail, the Aspen/Volaré won Motor Trend's Car of the Year award in 1976, proving that even award-winning cars can be terrible. Today, they're mostly forgotten, overshadowed by their more reliable and stylish competition. But hey, if you ever find one in a barn, at least you'll have a conversation piece. Cadillac Seville. The first-generation Cadillac Seville wasn't ugly in a traditional sense. It was ugly in a "why is a Cadillac this small and weirdly shaped" kind of way. Cadillac's attempt at a European-inspired luxury sedan ended up looking like a Chevy Nova in an ill-fitting tuxedo. It had an upright squared-off body, a long hood, and a trunk that looked like an afterthought. Introduced as Cadillac's compact luxury car to counter European imports like Mercedes-Benz, the Seville shared its platform with the Chevrolet Nova. Yes, the Cadillac of cars was based on a humble Chevy. It was shorter and narrower than any other Cadillac at the time, but they slapped a $12,479 price tag on it, a whopping $65,000 in today's money, which was more than a full-size Fleetwood. Mechanically, the Seville wasn't terrible. It came with a 5.7-liter Oldsmobile V8 and, surprisingly, one of the earliest applications of fuel injection in an American car. While it made for smooth driving, reliability issues plagued the system, leaving buyers questioning what they paid for. Fun fact, the Seville's development was rushed to the point that Cadillac literally stapled leather and vinyl together for the interior. This was not standard-of-the-world craftsmanship. Collectors today may find the Seville intriguing as an example of Cadillac's struggle to stay relevant during the 1970s, but as a daily driver, unless you like paying premium prices for Nova-grade performance, steer clear. Lincoln Versailles. If the Cadillac Seville was a Chevy Nova in disguise, the Lincoln Versailles was its Ford Granada twin, and somehow even worse. Lincoln attempted to market the Versailles as a luxury car, but the final product screamed "Parts Bin Special" louder than its weak 5.0-liter V8 ever could. The Versailles looked like a Ford Granada wearing cheap aftermarket chrome trim. Lincoln added a faux spare tire hump to the trunk, as if to say, "We're fancy." It didn't work. Starting at $11,500, around $50,000 today, it was more expensive than its competitors, despite being built on a platform shared with much cheaper cars. The car's main claim to fame was that it introduced clear-coat paint to American cars, a small win in an otherwise embarrassing story. Underneath, it had decent mechanicals, but who cared? Buyers weren't impressed by the idea of a luxury car that could be mistaken for a budget commuter. Interestingly, the Versailles was marketed as a direct response to the Cadillac Seville, but it failed miserably in comparison. With fewer than 51,000 units sold over 3 years, it's one of Lincoln's biggest flops. Today, the Versailles is more of a curiosity than a collectible. It's the kind of car you see at a junkyard and think, "Huh, someone actually bought that."